welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over my favourite bands and artists through the years. But, well, yeah, it'll make sense. But first I want to thank Bagel Hounds on Instagram. We were talking about music and she said that, why don't you do this for a video? This is an idea. And then like a light bulb above my head, ding, and I was like, that's a fantastic idea. So I'm going to be filming that today. And I know that the light, just ignore it. I do. So to start, we're going to talk about a band, well, a pop group called Busted. Now, I was born in 97. I'm 23 years old. I will be 24 in May. So I was probably about 4 or 5 in 2003, 2002. And Busted were huge. This was a period in music where you had people like Avril Lavigne, Busted, McFly, and tons of other people. Simple Plan is a band from that time, all the bands from that time, where, spiky hair, baggy clothes, skateboards, it was cool to be punk, and, it was cool to just be like a skater dude. It was like that era of pop music. And Busted, they had some really great pop rock hits, pop punk hits, like What I Go to School For, Air Hostess, I Like the Way You Dress. Essentially, there's just really cheesy and corny pop punk, pop rock hits, but I listen to them nowadays and they're not the best songs musically, but the amount of nostalgia that's there, it's just amazing. And, the songs like Year 3000, Crash the Wedding, just there's loads. What I Go to School For, Air Hostess, Thunderbirds Are Go. They did a great cover of the Undertone song Teenage Kicks, and a song called 3 AM was great by them. They were, that was the first proper band that I got into, was Busted, and they split up around that time as well. And then in 2016 they came back and released an album that flopped. And it flopped because it was just this pop garbage. There were no guitars, no attitude, no punk, any of that. It was just some pop rubbish. And you can tell that they listened to the reception they got, because then in 2019 they released an album that was actually really good. And it was like it was a rock anthem, not rock anthem. It was a rock, I can't speak today. It was a punk rock, album with some great riffs, a really good album. But anyway, they were the first. Now, this next band was very influential in my music listening. It was this band, you can see on screen now, this one here. And, this band was just, they had, again, some really cheesy radio hits. Now, I'm probably about 7 or 8 now, but I loved them. I had a few of their albums on CD. Remember when CDs were a thing? And they have some really great songs. Even today, I listen to some of this band's songs, and I like them, Photograph, Animals. Speaking of which, Animals is a song about picking up a girl and she's having sex with you while you drive. And I was 8 when I got into this band. Maybe 6 or 7, but there's no way at that age I understood the lyrics. What's some other one? How You Remind Me, Saving Me. Just some really great songs. But this band is probably the internet's most hated band of all time. So we'll press along, we'll move on to the All American Rejects. Now, they are, even today, I love them. And I cannot explain why. Most of their albums, I absolutely adore them. Unfortunately, they're one of those bands that abandoned their sound, and they haven't really released anything since 2014. Their first album is fantastic. Their second album, called Move Along, is a childhood anthem album for me. It is superb, and so many great songs on it, like Dirty Little Secret, which I probably know off by heart, Move Along, Change My Mind, 11 AM. There's loads of songs. There's It Ends Tonight is a great song. And then the next album again, When the World Comes Down, is fantastic. And then their last proper album was in 2013, I think, with Kids in the Street, which is a good title track from the album, but it wasn't that great of an album, if I'm honest with you. And they haven't released much since. The two singles they have released since that album haven't been great. And talking about losing your way, the next band who I really got into, a famous band, you may have heard of them, Green Day. Now this in itself is the first Green Day album I got into. This is just a flawless masterpiece. So my growing up, our family had, this is really British. If you're not British, you probably won't get this, but growing up, our family had a caravan in a caravan park down in Devon, and obviously that entailed a lot of driving. So I would listen to, or my dad would put that album on, American Idiot, in the car. So, childhood memories, and I grew up listening to that sort of stuff. And then in 2010, I think it was 2010, it might be 2009, they released the next album after this, which was 21st Century Breakdown. Or, no, 21st Century Breakdown is on it. Oh no, what's it called? I swear it's called 21st Century Breakdown. Anyway, they released that album with 21 Guns on it and Restless Heart Syndrome. That's a fantastic album. But Green Day, unfortunately, they released this one, American Idiot, which is great. Then 21st Century Breakdown, which is fantastic. And then they released Uno Dos Tres, which I didn't like. I just thought that it was a bit bland and a bit boring. And then they come back with Bang Bang. Is it called? No. Revolution Radio, sorry. In 2016, which was alright. Definitely a lot better than Uno Dos Tres. And then in 2020, they released the infamous Father of All Mother Efforts, which was just, pardon me, which, it's alright. It's not the best album in the world, if I'm honest with you. They could have done better. They sort of lost their way. Now, going back to when I was probably about, 9 or 10, another band from that period I really got into is Linkin Park. Gotta love a bit of Linkin Park. Now, there's a whole video on bullying and some of the experiences I went through in school, which I won't go into now. You can go and see that. But this band was very influential in helping me through that time. And all of their albums, even their last album, sorry about that. But yeah, all their albums, from their first one, Hybrid Theory, right the way through to Living Things, I think it's called, just really helped me through a very hard time. And I owe them a lot as a band. And God bless Chester Bennington. Nobody deserves to die like that. God bless him. Anyway, next up. So this was, we're now in high school or senior school, and one of my friends was a huge fan of Eminem Sleminem, or B Rabbity, or Hibbity Hobbity Hobbity, whatever he wants to call himself, Slim Shady. I make the same joke every time I talk about him, but this came out in 2010, and very influential in my music listening. Amazing album, some really great songs. Cold Wind Blows, Talking to Myself, Won't Back Down featuring Pink, Cinderella Man is a great song, Not Afraid, which was the big hit single from this album, just absolutely fantastic. You'll have to ignore the noise, I've opened the windows too hot. Probably the only rap artist that I really got into. It is not going well today, people. This is probably the only rapper that I really listen to, but I love his stuff, because I grew up on it. After this album, he released the Marshall Mathers LP2, and before this one, I should mention he released Relapse. Now, Relapse was very influential too, but I cannot honestly believe, I must have been about 11, 12 when Relapse came out, and I can't believe that I listened to it, because That's probably Eminem's most fucked up album. And if you know Eminem, you know that he's released some really fucked up shit. So Relapse comes along and I'm like, Jesus Christ, you know. So we're getting there. And then we, move on to 2014, college. You're getting a bit experimental in college, as you do. No, but the band that I really got into in college, which for now, 7 years later, no, yeah, 7 years later, my maths is off. Still my favourite band, Oasis. Just, greatest band of all time. I'm not going to go into it too much because there's video after video on this channel you can go watch about me talking about why I love Oasis so much. But just their music really spoke to me on a personal level. And they're the only band that has stayed my favourite band for this long. No band comes close in my mind. Just fucking amazing. And I would definitely go and watch some of my other videos on why I love them so much. I'm trying to speed this along a bit. We're almost there, but, so college sort of out of brain. After Oasis, I got into bands that were either 90s Britpop, like Blur, The Verve, Pulp, there's loads, Sweet, I can never pronounce their name. And then I started listening to the influences of Oasis. The Stone Roses, an amazing band. Of course, the Smiths, huge influence on Oasis. And then my dad's favourite band, The Jam, who are an absolutely amazing band. The Jam, in my mind, are the most underrated band. But getting to like 2017, 2018, I start working, and at the time my job involved a lot of driving. So I would stick albums on as I drove. And one band, the band that got me into the idea of an album, because when I was growing up, and for most of my teenage years as well, I didn't really understand what an album meant or what it was. For me, they'd always just been on the phone. So it'd always just been a collection of songs that you click on a phone. But one band taught me that an album meant from this song at the start to this song on the end. And this band taught me that a collection of songs can all interconnect and become an absolute masterpiece. And that band is, from one side, Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's albums are not albums that you can just pick a song out of. You have to listen start to finish. They perfected the idea of an album as a start to finish sort of, and every album, well, not every, fine. I think they have about 14 albums, so 12 out of 14 albums are amazing. And this in itself is just ungodly. But I was a huge Pink Floyd fan for a few years. I still am. I've got all their albums on vinyl, but after Pink Floyd came another band. Now, this next band, you've probably never heard of them. They're from a city called Liverpool, but they never really got big. They didn't really do much. They're called the Beatles. You should probably check them out if you've never heard of them. But no, jokes aside, from the first Beatles album I picked up on vinyl was their number one album, the red one. And that was because I liked their hits, but I never really listened to them. And I bought that one and really, became one of my favourite albums to listen to. So I knew I had to start listening to the Beatles more. And I started listening to Revolver, which was the first Beatles album I got into. And then it sort of sprung from there. And at the time, this was like 2018, the White Album was coming out with its 50th anniversary. So I started listening to that and just exploded into this Beatles extravaganza. I love the Beatles. And then in 2019, Easter 2019, I took this trip, into Liverpool and did all the Beatles stuff, which was absolutely amazing. So yeah, after 2018, there's a few stuff here or there that I'm probably skipping, but there's no artist or band that I really got into until last year, when I found an artist who was started in the 70s, late 70s, and his career is, that's a whole video on its own, but the last band slash artist that I've really got into and can honestly say is one of my favourites is this man, Prince. His stuff is ungodly. It's just so good. This was the first Prince album I got into, and then from there, I went back once in 1999. I'm not going to sing it, and then forward to what's it called? Don't forget the name. Uh, Parade Under the Cherry Moon, which is just amazing in itself. Prince is the last one that I really did fall in love with. And I'm listening to the albums that I haven't got on vinyl, and they're amazing too. But yeah, that was my musical journey through the years. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you agree with, if you liked any of these bands or artists. And I'll see you again next time. Take care, everyone.